To help us kick off our proceedings, we are very privileged to have Minister K. Shanmugam with us. Minister Shanmugam is currently Coordinating Minister for National Security and concurrently Minister for Home Affairs. He has also previously served as Minister for Law and Minister for Foreign Affairs. A lawyer by training, Minister Shanmugam was widely recognized as one of Singapore's top advocates and has also been a senior counsel of the Supreme Court of Singapore. It gives me great pleasure to hand over the floor to Minister Shanmugam. Minister, please.
Thanks, Joseph. Looking at the title or the theme of today's discussion, the reordering of the Middle East, as it were, whenever you use the word order in any international context, people would tend to think of it as referring to either stability or predictability or both. Now, if you apply that frame to the Middle East, you see that the environment has changed very significantly. We can discuss the changes, but are these changes going to result in greater stability or greater predictability? I think that is, we can agree, very much an open question. Most people, I think, agree that for there to be any hope of stability in the Middle East, not that it's guaranteed, but for there to be even a hope of stability, there has got to be a just solution for the Palestinian question, which would mean a homeland for the Palestinians, while Israel's right to exist is also guaranteed and recognized. Now, we are in the current situation, I think, depending on which part of history you go back to, when you go back to, both sides can be accused of having prevented the arriving at a just solution. Who is guilty depends on which part of history do you look at. But if you go back roughly to about, say, 30 years ago, I think there was a real hope of peace and a real possibility of peace, and we know what happened then. But looking at it today, I think seems to be, at least at where the levers of power are in Israel, a desire to take actions which would prevent a Palestinian state. And Israeli leaders, or at least some of them, now categorically reject a two-state solution. What's our own position? We have made it very clear several times that, at least as of now, Israel's response has gone too far, and as Prime Minister said on the 30th of May, and many things have happened since then, Israel's actions may, and I quote, even be a likely breach of international humanitarian law. Many, including I, think that history will probably be harsh in its judgment of Israel's action. To think that there can be a complete solution through force of arms that doesn't require a just solution, I'm not sure that will bring about any lasting solution. Our own position on the two-state position is clear. We said we will recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions, and those conditions have been set out. It is fair to say it's difficult to see at present any viable pathway to such a solution, and that's a realistic conclusion. But It's the only way we think to achieve a comprehensive, just, durable solution to this conflict. The Palestinians deserve no less. So we have to hold out hope. At the same time, let's recognize something else, which is that the current conflicts between Israel and Hamas, Hezbollah and Iran are not unique. The Congo DRC has been engulfed in conflict, resulting in perhaps as many as 6 million casualties, most of them civilian. Doesn't get anywhere near the recognition that the Israel-Palestine situation is getting. South Sudan has suffered almost 400,000 casualties, again mainly civilian, in the conflicts leading up to and after its independence in 2011. These are just 2 examples, and you can go around and I can mention several others, including in the Middle East, where the casualty lists are much higher than what's been happening in Palestine. Doesn't make any of them right, but they're all happening. And it's not only happening in one place. So conflict, war, civil war, insurgency, riot, revolution. These have been endemic in what we now call the global South for the last 80-odd years since the end of the Second World War. And such conflicts obviously bring misery wherever they take place. The Middle East seems particularly unfortunate because it seems to have had more than its fair share of these conflicts. But I think we also have to look at the Middle East and recognize that the conflicts there are not unique in the context of the conflicts that are taking place around the rest of the region. I think, the purpose of this session is really to hear you and maybe have a dialogue. So I will conclude my very brief remarks at this point, and let's try and have a dialogue. Thank you.